Thank you. Good morning, and appreciate the invite to participate in this event. And it's a privilege to be on a panel with Senator Capito and Senator Manchin and Superintendent Birch. I got to work with a little bit here, and in light of the pandemic and the apparent high need of connectivity that has been brought to the surface as a result of this pandemic and everyone transitioning to remote learning and remote working. Again, just like Senator Capito mentioned, I don't want to replicate the comments and try to fill in some of the gaps that may have presented themselves. One of the things I think it would be important to discuss here with the Education Alliance and educators on the line is kind of a quick overview of how all of these things work together. How does a Facebook and Zayo investment work and improve the opportunity of funding that Senator Capito and Senator Manchin are working so hard at the federal level to make available for West Virginia. To start off, internet is not in West Virginia. And I know that may sound like a joke, and there may be some laughs out of that because it's true. We don't have internet in West Virginia in lots of areas. But internet, if we look at it as a power system, as a power plant, so electricity, it would be as if West Virginia had 0 power producing plants, and all of our electricity, we had to go to Ashburn, Virginia, or Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or Columbus, Ohio, as examples, and we had to transport our electricity into the state of West Virginia because we did not produce it here. It would be very, very expensive under that model. And if we look at broadband, if we look at internet, in those areas, Ashburn, Virginia, Columbus, Ohio, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, those are internet exchanges, and that is where we have to go. We have to send data to those points, one of those points, to access the internet and to light our fiber or light our airwaves of cellular or fixed wireless. And so it's really, really expensive under the current infrastructure that we have, which is why you see a lot of higher prices at the schools. You experience higher prices of connectivity. Institutions of a higher ed experience a higher cost as well, and our residents experience a higher cost in comparison to our urban areas around our state. And so what Zayo and Facebook represent is a direct connection to the internet exchanges. And what you're talking about is being able to buy bandwidth on pennies on the dollar. And what that does is that improves the availability of a company, an internet service provider, say that's local, that's a West Virginia company, a CityNet, a HardyNet, a Gigabeam, a Micrologic, an Alpha Technologies. It allows them to be able to operate at a lower cost and thus be more profitable. It's important that we understand that internet service providing is an industry. There are thousands and thousands of jobs in West Virginia that are created by internet service providers. I think the cellular market, we have about 10,000 employees in the state of West Virginia in just the cellular mobile market alone. And so it's important from an economic development standpoint that we create an environment that allows those companies to be profitable and be able to reinvest into their infrastructure. However, West Virginia, it's a $1 billion problem. Our internet connectivity and broadband problem is a $1 billion problem. And that may seem like an overwhelming amount of money to be able to come up with to solve that problem. However, in light of Senator Capito's and Senator Manchin's efforts at the federal level, we have done very well in raising capital, raising funding to make available for West Virginia. If we look at the 2010 to 2017 time frame. And there was about $4 million to $5 million that came into West Virginia that was not, that was outside the money that went to Frontier. And if we look at the past 3 years and the efforts that have been done collectively as an all hands on deck approach, we are right now at roughly $50 million in investments that are going to communities, that are going to public-private partnerships, that are going to projects that have a mission-driven model, where it's to bring reliable, affordable internet to areas that do not have it, and scalable internet as well. And right now, the state of West Virginia is looking at a federal program that is to the tune of $800 million. And West Virginia is sitting in a position to capture $800 million in funding to connect the entire state of West Virginia. And the Broadband Council has been working closely with our federal delegation to make that possible. And we've also been working closely with the internet service providers in the state from an educational standpoint, to educate those providers in the state how to prepare their companies in order to be able to go after this $800 million opportunity. This is an opportunity for West Virginia to create a very connected state, to do it the right way, to create the fiber to the home opportunity, to create affordable, reliable internet. From an educational standpoint, we do have all the schools that are connected by fiber. However, it's something that I think everyone on the line understands, is that you can have fiber connected schools, but if the students are not connected, it limits what we are able to do, not only from an educational standpoint, interactivity, as well as just monitoring and staying in touch with those students as well. So we're looking forward to this year as far as what the opportunities present themselves in West Virginia. We're looking forward to creating those opportunities for internet service providers, and then also we're looking forward to having a very, very connected state of West Virginia through that. And I appreciate the time today, and I will open it up to any questions anyone has.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Hinton, for your insight on this issue and helping to connect it from the federal level down to our state. Our first question for you is, many of our districts don't have cell phone coverage. How can we get more towers in rural areas?
That's a good question. And the biggest problem with cellular service, one is that our terrain is not so conducive for cellular service. And so it takes more towers and more radios, and that is an increased cost. And so what we end up running into is an issue where companies will not receive a return on investment, and thus have trouble making an investment into areas that are underserved from a mobile standpoint, and that's due to the lower population. There is programs at the federal level from a mobility standpoint. I think a mobility fund that has the opportunity to mitigate some of the costs in these areas. There have been some public-private partnerships that will build a tower, make it available to the cellular provider. These programs help mitigate the cost for the cellular provider, but the fact of the matter is it's a business case, and there needs to be more funding in order to mitigate their capital risk.
Great, thank you. And our last question for Mr. Hinton, you mentioned that there are $800 million worth of federal programs available. How quickly can the public expect to see results from these funds?
So the program is slated to go to a reverse auction process this fall in October. Um, and that would probably result in infrastructure beginning to be built in 2021, middle of 2021. And that program has a 6-year window. Recipients of those funds will need to complete their build out and connect all of the locations that they were obligated to connect within a 6-year window. So if our efforts from a strategy standpoint are successful in preparing the ISPs to go after the funding, making sure that we uh, we achieve every single census block that's available, and the money is available by census block. Every single census block that's available, we achieve every dollar that's available. We bring it back to West Virginia, and we start a 6-year program that is building out and connecting every single home that's in West Virginia. You can see in 6 years, the opportunity presents itself to connect every single residence and business in West Virginia with fiber in 6 years.